So one of the things that we often talk about in a landscape where we live is when a tree comes down, people often take trees down because they're dangerous and then they cart it away, even if it's an old dead tree. One of the most important things you're going to see as we move along is the dead tree, the dead down and woody material in a forest. The fact that this isn't a clean place is really important. This long tree that fell down, we would call a nurse log. The fact that it's over ground there isn't the best. It's better if they're right tight to the ground. So this guy didn't quite get it right, but he really only had one chance. It gives seedlings of other trees a chance to get up and above the duff layer. It's often really hard for a seedling to germinate in the forest floor. It can't get its roots deep enough. But up here, there's no big duff layer on it, so a lot of these hemlocks will start. This fir, we can't quite tell the story behind it from this side. It's funny it's put a side shoot out like that. So you'll get in a forest, you'll see a whole big straight line of trees in a perfectly straight line, and it's because they started their life out on a nurse log. The bark on the top here will have another species of salamander called wandering salamander. It used to be clouded salamander. This guy occurs here, and then the next place it occurs is California. It's crazy. Not quite sure what's going on there. It's not a very, well, that's a long wander. Yeah, it just had a destination. So, and other species that only occur on decaying wood grow quite well. Anybody know any of these other species?
Is that some hemlock?
What was one you were saying?
We recognize this one here as a false azalea.
The azalea, yeah, false azalea.
I've never seen before, actually.
Usually there's some huckleberries that will grow on here that have the nice berries. Kevin's pointing to a lovely, what are you pointing to, Kevin?
To a huckleberry.
Huckleberry, well done, sir. Thank you. Good berries. So it's, yes. Vanna, how is this tree doing?
This one?
Yeah, what's it doing? What's the story? It's got a root here towards us.
It's got its life on a stump.
Started on a stump. So it's a good way of getting up initially, but then sometimes it really kind of messes you up a little bit later in life when you put on weight and get a little bit heavier, and then you fall down because you aren't really firmly based in the tree. But it was really good for people like Emily Carr paintings where she had some cedars that were doing things like that. It's just a beautiful landscape or structure. Any questions about any of this stuff? Anybody see any other evidence of wildlife? What about on the walk down? What did we see? Who noticed the evidence of wildlife?
Oh, the feathers.
The bird bomb. What happened there? CSI Biology, CSI Avatar. Who ate it? Could have been an owl. There's barred owl here. Most likely a hawk, or a falcon, a merlin, or a Cooper's hawk, maybe even a goshawk will do that. So we often don't see wildlife, but we see evidence, and we're going to be looking for some more up here soon.
Okay.
Follow Ken.
Yeah.
I hate the ones that are right at the level. Yeah, we need to ponderosa pine. That's when
To make the footpath.
Yes. It's I mean, nothing's been moved at all here at this point, so with a little bit of work, it comes together. Yeah, for a group shot. For sure.
looking tree.
We'll do that.
There's a favorite tree, boy.
Be able to get a picture of a big crowd this time. Beautiful tree.
It looks like we started out in North Boardwalk.
There was one tree with ribbon all around.
Gnarls, so we call it the wall of gnarls or the narwhal.
So, do we know what causes these malformations?
Well,
But we sure wish we did.
Somebody does.
it's an infection.
It is an infection, and some people, I have talked to foresters who have said it is often a viral thing causing them. Possibly the bottom could be fungal. This could have been growing on a nurse log originally. These, so So the other thing about these big cedars, and we know cedar is our oldest living tree in our forest. Anybody know how old Western and Yellow get?
800 years old.
They will get 800 years old, but that would be a young one as to how far old they can get, right? They can get up to 2,000 years old. So when you think when glaciation came through here, how long ago? 10 to 12,000 years ago, BC was covered in ice. We really haven't had that many generations of these, some of these big cedars. We're certainly not letting them get that old, but it's such a unique tree in a forest system that there's some species of vertebrates that have adapted to live in them. Many of them get a big hollow center, like a chimney, and back east where there's chimney swifts, we have a swift on the coast here called Vox's swift, which we'll use them for nesting in, and it's really, we have very few nest sites of these birds, but the ones we do know of are often in these trees, and some of our very rare bats as well. And again, the whole importance of this tree to our First Nations culture, that tree behind, the cedar behind, is missing its entire bark on this side of us. There is a chance that that was stripped at one time when it was younger by people here, so it's pretty cool. So anybody see the evidence of wildlife here?
Well, there's some right behind you.
Where?
Kevin,
Yeah. So
he is pretty wild.
So these, yeah, Kevin. Normally, I'm considered the wildlife, but anyways,
that's a hotel.
this is sort of a fly-through restaurant. Woodpeckers, we've got 5 species of woodpecker probably on the island. I think we used to have 6. We've lost 1, but this is a tree that's old and decayed, and it's got a lot of insect life in it. So this tree is being used by woodpeckers for food. And one of our largest species, the largest extant species in North America, is the pileated woodpecker with the cap. Looks kind of like Woody the woodpecker. They use these trees and they listen for insect life in them, and then they'll open where the insects are, and they can reach in or get insects that are 3-4 inches deep into that tree, or further if they excavate a hole. But they're so well designed that woodpeckers have been used by engineers to design hard hats and things like bike hats and everything. The woodpeckers hit this tree so hard, but if you get a chance to watch them, their padding is only on the front and the back. So a woodpecker will sit on his stool, his tail, and start pecking here. And if he hears something over here, he won't peck like that. Occasionally the odd young will, and they'll learn it's pretty embarrassing. You knock yourself out. But so the bird has to kind of pop over and go like this and do it that way. And their tongue is adapted for this life. They've got a tongue that starts up here, goes all the way around, and down this way. It's the longest tongue pretty much of any organism we have here. Maybe. You're all okay if this is the tongue? I keep it with my owl eyeballs, but this is a tongue. We'll just pass it around, and it's so the woodpeckers have on the end of their tongue, and I can pass the jar around. They've got either a really gooey substance or they've got barbs, and this is from a pileated woodpecker that we dissected at Uvic actually many moons ago. This graduated the same year I did, I think, and so they pierce the insect once they open the chamber, and then the barbs stick, and then they can pull it out. So it's pretty crazy. The eyeballs are great horned eyeballs, just in case you were owl eyeballs. Yeah, sorry. The other thing I have, another prop. This is the grand test for anybody here. If anybody knows what this is.
How many points? 100 points?
100 points.
Haggis.
Yes. I never had that before.
That is a new one.
The whale tooth.
Whale tooth is good. Look, we've had whale, we've had stomach guessed before. Any other guesses? A root. Very good guess. It's wrong, but it's a great guess. Another good guess that's wrong.
We guess
From an animal or?
Ish.
Yeah. A nest. Might be related to what we're talking about right now.
Is it a cast of a nest?
He said it.
100 points.
He got it.
So this is a cast of a woodpecker nest. It's hard to see the woodpecker because it's right in the middle here, but this tree had been brought into a nature house that I worked at for many years. So this would be the edge of the tree and this would be the hole. So the woodpecker goes in this way, lays its eggs down there. We filled a woodpecker nest with plaster of Paris. You can tell this is the bookshelf they had on the back there. But it leans forward a little bit in the tree like that so that rain doesn't go in. And a male woodpecker to continue to keep a mate has to build a new nest every year. And that's crucial in a forest. Woodpeckers are often considered a keystone species because they build a cavity that gets used. In BC alone, there's about 65 maybe species of birds that use woodpeckers' cavities in trees. Something like that. It's about 80 vertebrates that use woodpecker. So the woodpecker uses it one year, the next year, other birds like chickadees, swallows, wrens can come in and use it. The bigger woodpeckers like the pileated, which excavates a square hole when it's feeding, but a round hole when it's nesting. Some of our larger owls like western screech owl, which isn't our largest owl, but can use them. So
And
that's the
ducks,
cavity.
Even ducks.
Even ducks like wood ducks and golden eyes and bufflehead.
What species of woodpecker have we lost on Vancouver Island?
So there was a Lewis's woodpecker that occurs in the interior of BC that did occur on Vancouver Island. It's more of an open grassland species. We do have on the coast here sapsuckers, so red-breasted sapsucker, pileated the largest, northern flicker, and there will be downy and hairy too. So, but yeah.
Sorry, those nests there, do they make them in dead trees or live trees?
It's a tree that's decaying. A Douglas fir doesn't often get a nest in it. They really like deciduous trees, and they use them much more frequently, and they'll be quite high too. So you'll get a forest like this with a pileated woodpecker nest 60 feet up the tree, and then you'll get a common merganser, which will have, it's a big duck, that will use that same nest the year after, and the young jump out of that tree and walk to the, when they're a day old, and walk to the, you'll do anything when your mom says when you're a day old, and walk to the creek and then down to the rest. So these are the kinds of places that they nest in a forest like this. And without trees,
What time of year? What time of year do they make the nest?
the time of year that the woodpeckers make the nest, so many of them will be nesting now, and they'll start right up, you know, a couple months. Is that crossbills we're hearing?
No, it's a dog.
Dog.
Tiny.
Oh, there's a round too.
Yeah, there's a robin alarming.
Robin, very distracted. There could be a bird of prey that the robin's yelling at,
Or
so
us.
we'll keep an eye out. I don't think he's yelling at us. So woodpeckers, amazing birds, dead trees. 80 species of vertebrates alone need the dead tree in their system. Some, like ruffed grouse, which you probably know, has a mating call that it needs to have a log on the ground to do its mating call. Without a log, its breeding call sounds like this. With the log, but better. So they can't do that if there's not a log on the ground. It's embarrassing for them to try even. So, but yeah, so again, dead trees, ignore these live ones, and you'll be happy. Any other questions?
Are there murrelets nest in this forest?
Are there?
Murrelets?
I would be surprised if murrelets do nest in here. The trees aren't. It's just not a. It's possible. We don't know probably. This is a pretty gnarly tree, so something happened to it. Actually, this is the second gnarliest tree in Avatar Grove, I believe. In the world, sorry. And so I'm not sure how old it is. It's a good question. We probably never find out.
You know, was it this one? Actually, it was the other one, but the